You're listening to Real Talk Texas with local expert Steve Hakes. Now, here's Steve.
If you've just tuned in, you're listening to Real Talk Texas on 570 KLIF. You're always welcome to contact me directly through realtalktexas.com, and that's realtalktexas.com. Go ahead and click on the contact button, fill in the information you're looking for, and we'll get you connected to the real experts in the Dallas-Fort Worth market that really can make a difference in your life, and they're trustworthy people that we've vetted out. We know that these are the people that we can highly recommend to our listeners. And if you're just joining us, we're listening to Stacey and Linda of Détente Collaborative Mediation, which is a totally different approach to the traditional separation or divorce process when people are faced with these terrible, terrible times in their life where laid out plans just didn't work, and they've made a decision to do that. And one of the things we're talking about is the whole collaborative mediation thing. And I asked a question earlier, and I want to get back to that, and that is, who doesn't this work for? I mean, is this War of the Roses where, they've drawn a line in the middle of the house and it is not going to work? So who's when you interview someone, is there a point where you say, guys, I don't think that this is going to work at all? Well,
one of the things I think you need to know is that Stacey and I don't advocate divorce. We're not pro-divorce. If a couple comes to us and they're really not sure what they want to do, we're going to encourage them to work on their marriage if they have any gas left in the tank to work on it with. So sometimes people come to us and they say, things really aren't working. We've tried counseling. We're not sure we want a divorce, but we just can't live together. And so they need some help coming up with agreements about what to do with their finances and what to do with their children in the meantime. And one of the things that's unique is Stacey has experience in the civil arena as well. So she can help them, the two of us help them communicate and find agreements so that they can live separately. And we call it end of the rope reconciliation, because it allows them to live separately and still work on the marriage. So even if they need to live separately, we can help them with that so that it makes their chances greater that they'll be able to reconcile because they know what they're both looking at and how they're going to handle things.
They're getting some coaching along the way of how to deal with that.
Absolutely.
Where most people, I'm sure, really don't have an idea of what to do at this point. I'm sure they're asking their friends, they're asking their parents, they're asking people that may not be giving the best advice to them.
Right. What usually happens is they're angry and they've decided they can't live together, so they live separately, and they just fly by the seat of their pants figuring out what to do with the children and what to do with the money, and that tends to make more antagonism between them, which decreases the likelihood that their marriage can survive. So we're very much encouraging them to make their marriage work. But there are those people who aren't a good fit for our process. Those are the people where there is physical or sexual abuse, stalking, or harassment. If somebody's severely mentally ill and can't function in our process, then they're probably not a good fit for us. If somebody needs safety measures built in, or if they're missing trust regarding the finances, if there's some real strange things happening, they might not be the best fit for us, because what we expect of our clients is that they have open disclosure. And so if information is requested, it needs to be simply revealed. If I need to see the credit card statement and ask you what these charges are, then that's something that simply needs to be put on the table, because that's so much more cost effective just to put it on the table so everybody knows what's what. If there's a situation where things aren't adding up, somebody says I'm making $30,000 a year and they're buying a yacht, then things aren't adding up. So we're very conscious of people being trustworthy and open in the process. And even if they're not speaking to each other, that's what we can help them do, is talk to each other.
And I guess you brought up the fact that there's divorces can be a very expensive process, and this is very different. It sounds like it's more of a friendly divorce kind of a thing where everybody's talking and they've all kind of come to this point. What's Stacey, what's really the difference in price if I'm going out and we're both hiring attorneys versus going through this type of process?
Let me just interrupt there. We want it to become a friendly divorce, but it's not unusual for folks to come to us who aren't friendly yet.
Oh, okay.
We try to help them get there.
All right.
Yes, I think that's a very important point, because Linda was saying you have to have trust, and that Well, yes, there has to be a certain level of trust, but people come to us with very low trust at the time. There could have been affairs, there can be addiction, there can be all kinds of troubles in the marriage that will cause a lack of trust. We can deal with those things. They just have to really be ready to want to try to reach agreement. That's really the key factor. As far as expense, let me explain a little bit about that. We are, in our statistics, we've found that we're 85 to 95% less expensive than a fully litigated divorce. One of the reasons why we're so much less expensive is because the couples in our process have the choice of how they wish to use attorneys. So attorneys are always welcome in our process, absolutely. The couples can bring their attorneys in and we will do that mediation. What makes us a little different, though, than traditional mediation in Texas is that traditional mediation is usually done at the end, very close to trial, where the parties have had lawyers and the lawyers have developed each side and they've done the written request for information, they've done the depositions, they've been to the courthouse, they've spent a lot of time and money developing their client's case, which they must do because as an attorney, they must prepare for trial in the event that the case does not settle. So traditional mediation in Texas usually happens at the end. It's almost always either a half-day or full-day process with a mediator, and it tends to be very exhausting. You have both lawyers stating the positions of the spouses, and the mediator runs back and forth and tries to create risk on both sides so that they are basically forced into settlement. The way that we do it is we generally do it early. And the folks who come to us know that they can get legal information from me. I can't give legal advice, but I can give legal information. They know that they have a way to communicate and work on that. So what happens in our process is they usually get done fairly rapidly. And out of the 2+ years that we've been seeing clients actively in this practice, we've only had one come in with an attorney for an hour. And the attorneys work offline for folks very often, which is a wonderful way to utilize an attorney in the way that the client wishes to do so, because they can help them develop options for settlement, talk about legal issues and things like that outside of the process, and then come back in with that information. The other thing that I do is, of course, I will write up their agreements in a mediated settlement agreement. And that is a legally binding document in Texas when it's signed by both parties. What I tell people to do if they do not have attorneys actively in their case is to make certain that they take the mediated settlement agreement to attorneys before they sign it so that they can get someone on their side as an advocate for them to look at it and make sure that their agreements were well informed. And as a mediator in Texas, I cannot write the legal paperwork. So it takes a petition for divorce and a divorce decree to complete the process. As a mediator, I have to be neutral. If I'm writing the paperwork, I can only do it for one. So our ethics laws in Texas will not allow me, even though I know how to do it and I am an attorney and I can, I'm not allowed to do that as a mediator. So they will need to either, if it's a very simple divorce, they may be able to use the new forms that we're coming out with in Texas, or they will want to have an attorney write this up for them anyway.
So where the real savings is the number of hours that attorney that they hire to represent them is really cut back because a lot of the negotiations and everything like that are out of the way.
That's absolutely correct. So the benefit to the clients in our process and the cost savings comes in because they have control of the way attorneys are used.
Well, you're listening to Real Talk Texas here on 570 AM KLIF, and you're listening to a couple of our real experts on our expert panel. You can find out more about the experts from Real Talk Texas on our website at www.realtalktexas.com. And if you want specific information from Stacey and Linda, you can go to divorcemediationtexas.com as well. Either way, you'll be able to be connected to them. And Stacey, we talked about coming to an agreement and to settlements and things like that. And then in the next segment, we're going to talk a little bit more about, okay, we've come to an agreement. Here are some of the assets that are being divided, including your home if you're a homeowner. And I can add a little insight as to what I see as a mortgage professional. And as someone comes into my office and applies for a home loan, and they have given up the home as part of the divorce settlement, and how that really affects them going down the road for either spouse. So when we come back, that's what we're going to cover. So please stay tuned.